People of the internet, Joe Rogan has single-handedly destroyed comedy for years now, and the final nails, tink tank, are in the coffin. And today, we're going to learn all about it in Kamal's film, Joe Rogan Ruined Comedy. So grab your coffee, grab your joint, let's go.
Stand-up comedy is at its lowest point since blackface, and it's all Joe Rogan's fault.
I want to sell kayaks!
He's a chronic stool fucker. He's cultivated a crew of some of the most mediocre comedians we've ever seen. Notice I said we, not just me.
See? It's not just the comedy critiquers and the people making videos in that scene, the content creators. People all know Joe Rogan sucks. And we can look at these numbers. You can come on my page and say whatever you want, but the physics speak for themselves.
The culture feeling.
And it seems like No Joke Joro has zero concept of what humor is.
You know those powdered wigs that old dudes used to wear and the people in court used to wear?
Wiggers, I think they called them.
No, wiggers are white people that wish they were black. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, Joe Rogan is retarded, and that's just it. That's it. There's nothing to it. He is one of the most retarded people in media.
A lifelong comedy fan, it's been rough watching this man just single-handedly ruin my favorite art form. So let's get into how we got here and what we can do to fix it.
Friends was a funny show.
Joe, you were great on Friends.
I wasn't on Friends.
That's a joke.
I think a big reason of why Joe Rogan has made so many bad comedy specials and made so many of his obnoxious friends famous is because he doesn't seem to understand basic humor. I know that sounds crazy for arguably the most famous comedian in the world to not understand basic jokes. But when you watch this clip of Joe talking with comedian Annie Letterman, I think you'll get what I'm saying.
Listen, everyone has the right to be whatever the f they are.
Oh, you think?
I think so.
What about Nazis?
They have the more of a right. A third right.
I don't think that's right. I think it's something. That's a different word. It's
Reich?
Yeah. What does that even mean?
Is this nigga serious?
I know.
Didn't Annie like dip on the whole Rogan crew with the Kalila thing? Because I haven't heard anything about it. It's not like I look out for her, but like normally she was around the Rogan thing and then something happened. I think it's the Kalila thing. But I noticed like even the Bad Friends guys, they've all distanced themselves from that. It's really weird how bad comedy makes people leave. It's crazy.
I know that was painful to watch, but to illustrate my point, we got to break this down play by play. So earlier in the conversation, Annie Letterman says everyone has the right to be whatever they want. And then Joe says,
what about Nazis?
Now you guys tell me what you think, but in my world, you only say this for two reasons. You're either trying to set someone up for a pro-Nazi joke, or because you're genuinely asking if it's ethical to be one. Now it's clear to me that Joe was choosing option 2. Now why he would do this on a comedy podcast with a comedian is beyond me, but I know he wasn't doing option 1 because when Annie inevitably does her pro-Nazi joke,
a third right,
a pretty clever one at that, Joe hits her with a well actually and corrects her diction.
I don't think that's right. I think it's something. That's a different word. It's
Reich?
I just almost can't stand the guy anymore. He is such a buffoon. I just don't even know how the media created this guy. He's a corporate shill. If you didn't know that, he works with pharma. He works with the corporate media. There you go. That's about all I'm getting into now. But how did we let this happen? I'm not saying this because I disagree with his political views. I disagree what he enjoys. You know, like those are separate things. But just at a very basic level, how did we let a retarded man get so big? You know? It baffles me. It baffles me to no end. And I get it. I was part of that process. I can admit it. But looking back, I'm just like, what the fuck did we do?
What does that even mean?
And I think he did this because he's not able to connect the dots and understand basic humor. I'm convinced the fact that Annie said third right instead of third Reich genuinely confused Joe. And he saw this as a teaching moment for Annie instead of an
Random question. Do you think Joe Rogan licks his butthole or sucks his whole yin yang twin? He's always doing it. Have you seen that picture where he's on the bench and his legs are spread up in the air? He has a particular knack or a particular enjoyment or just loves spreading his legs. Now, I don't know what continues after that. He doesn't show that in public, but he looks like he could lick his butthole, and I bet he does. Okay, anyways.
An embarrassing moment for himself. And I swear he does this shit all the time. Like, here's an example of comedian Mark Norman telling Joe the story of when he was emceeing a Halloween runway show.
We had a live audience, judges, the whole thing, and they're like, be edgy, we saw your act, we like it. And I go, great. So I'm trying to be funny. I'm getting some zings, some zangs. Catwoman walks on, like a sexy Catwoman. I make fun of her, pussy joke, whatever. And then she's walking off, and an African queen is walking on. Like, she's like a big headdress, black lady. And I go, hey, watch that whip around the African. And I swear to God, the camera just went, doo, like the whole thing shut down. I felt like the power went out. And I was like, well, that was weird. And they fired me right after.
We all heard that, right? Mark said, hey, keep that whip away from the African. The vibe totally shifted, and Mark immediately got fired. What do you think Joe's response is gonna be?
Wait a minute. If someone's wearing African garb, you can't say the African?
We all got that, right? African, whip, slavery, like it doesn't take a genius to get there. But once again, Joe Rogan is as lost as can be. And then Mark had to...
That's because he licks his butthole. You can't expect a man that licks his butthole to be very smart. You just can't. And I get it. Like, smart could be kind of subjective, right? We all kind of think we're smart. You know, I guess. I'm not, but it's a different thing. I'm not Joe Rogan dumb, okay? But the point of the matter is, Joe Rogan's a retard.
Do every comedian's favorite thing, hold Joe's hand and explain the entire joke to him. I mean, this is starting to feel like a clinical issue, my friend, I gotta be honest. I'm convinced that this man is incapable of understanding any joke that doesn't have cuss words or gay undertones. Sometimes
dick.
Not even undertones. Sometimes it's just gay.
Now you cheering because you want to see me do gay porn?
And I'm
No, you want to fuck a dude in the butt. That's why you want them to think. You think they want you to see porn, but really your deepest desire is, my mind is telling me no, but your booty is telling me yes. Lube it up, baby, cause that's something I must confess. There ain't nothing wrong with a little booty grind. Okay, anyway, sorry, I was having fun for a minute. I kind of lost my place there, but listen.
Right?
It is
how does somebody become the biggest comedian in the world and the biggest gatekeeper in comedy without the ability to understand basic ass jokes? It's obvious. It's because Joe Rogan never got famous for being funny. Most people know him from either Fear Factor, where he wasn't funny, or his podcast where he's almost always the least funny person on camera. Unless, of course, Bwendon is there. Maybe that's why he has him on so much. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly,
something, dumb people keep dumb people around, or people that don't want other people to succeed. So the reason Joe Rogan's in an echo chamber is because all of his friends are not funny, so he's never held accountable. Why does Joe Rogan not go on tour? Why does none of that happen? Because if he leaves the comedy mothership, he's not funny. Only fellow retards migrate to the comedy ship, and they all have a big retarded party.
and I know I'm gonna sound like a here, but honestly, I don't think Joe ever really understood comedy. Like, at all. He didn't even consider himself funny until he started doing stand-up.
And why else did you get into being a comedian?
I don't know. I got talked into doing it. No, I wasn't really very funny.
He's just a regular guy that kind of fell into stand-up, stayed consistent, and was able to leverage the success of his other projects into a comedy career. And because one, he's convinced that any sort of criticism is just from losers who are jealous of his success.
Like, comics are some awful narcissists. Mm-hmm. But you know when you really see that? When comics start attacking comics that are doing better than them. Yeah. So there's this feeling like, what about me? Be honest. Why is he f***ing history hyenas? I don't give a fuck if they're back. Go off. Yeah. We are back.
You know what? I'm tired of this guy. You know what, Joe Rogan? Since you're just such a little Mr. Man, how about you and me have a sanctioned in a gym, whichever, we'll have a gym with refs and we'll have a sanctioned fight. We can do what? We could do judo, jujitsu, kickboxing. Been there, done that. Let's go, buddy. Boxing, let's do it. And you know what? I will finish Joe Rogan in a minute or less. If there's punches, 25 seconds. In fact, I will only use judo. We can do a sotogari, uchimata. You know, we could do them all. Dashi harai. You want to get some of that? Yeah. Yeah, and I will break him in half on the mat. I guarantee I'm sick of this punk talking shit. Come get me, Joe Rogan. I will finish you. Your jiu-jitsu is garbage. Your knees can't handle the fury. I will bring you on the fucking mat. Put your fucking foot to the test. When everyone says, "Oh, I got jiu-jitsu," I've been rubbing my knee for 6 years and I haven't gone to jiu-jitsu. Bro, I don't want to disclaim Eddie Bravo, but is he really a black belt? No, he's retarded.
Back.
Baby, I'm a baby.
And two, because he
Knock
never
him out.
really had that natural draw to comedy, Joe was never able to evolve past his stool fucking phase. And he'll never have to, because he didn't have to build an audience from actually being funny. None of this is super new, but what surprised me is how Joe seems to be running his club, the Comedy Mothership. Here's a clip of comedian Tim Dillon telling a story about how Joe reacted to Tim's opener bombing at his club. And you guys tell me if you notice anything interesting.
I bring my opener to do a Tim Dillon and Friends show. He's having a rough set. I'm sitting on the balcony watching him. I feel an energy behind me. Rogan is standing there watching him bomb like this. Rogan goes, "He's bombing, man. He can't be here." And I go, "I know. I'm getting him off right now."
Can you believe that?
And I literally, I run at him again, and I go, light him now. He gets like, "What's going on?" I go, "Light him now." He got off. He goes, "Yeah, it was a little tough." He was still smiling. I go, No. Here's the thing. I go, "You gotta go right now." He goes, "What do you mean? My bag's in the green room." I go, "Joe is unhappy, and it looks really bad for me. Get the fuck out."
Now look,
Can you believe that? A guy that is always like, the Comedy Mothership is a place where people can work out thing. And you would figure a guy that bombs all of his shows for 30 years would know what bombing was and would be like kind of compassionate. But I told you, I showed you that Andrew Channel 5 video where Joe Rogan was a tyrant. And I was right, because there's another story of Joe Rogan being a tyrant, and we'll get more. Don't worry, we'll get there. We got time, hopefully. Maybe not. But the point is, Joe Rogan is a tyrant, and he's a motherfucking dick, and he treats people like shit. And then he goes on his show, and they all suck his cock. Why? Because they're pussies. And they can't stand up for themselves, and their comedy sucks, and they know if they don't have Joe Rogan and his little overpaying bad comedian club, they would not be comedians. Just go ask Mark Norman.
obviously this is a comedian performing in front of a crowd, so we don't know exactly what's true and what's exaggerated, right? But I do believe that Joe was watching Tim's opener bomb and told Tim he can't be there. And I damn sure believe that Tim would be afraid enough of Joe to cut his opener set short and kick him out of the club. Now my thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the whole point of this club was to create a place for comedians to go and work on their new material without having to worry about the terrors of cancel culture. But you're immediately freaking out and shutting down a young comedian as soon as he starts to struggle. How does he not see how hypocritical this is? Especially when you've been doing stand-up for 30 plus years and you're still this bad at it.
Not funny!
Now, I personally have never been a huge fan of Joe Rogan's stand-up. I always found the consistent yelling and the stool f***ing to be obnoxious and unnecessary. But Joe put out a special recently that a lot of people are saying is one of the worst of all time, and I would agree. Now, for obvious reasons, I'm not gonna break everything down joke by joke, but there were a few major f***ups that little made that make his 4.9 on IMDb a generous rating. Number one, he bombed hard and often.
Trans women are women. How about most? How about almost all? You gotta leave room for crazy.
Oh wow. As someone who's done stand-up and bombed before, I get it. That shit sucks. It makes you feel like a worthless asshole publicly begging for the acceptance of a group of strangers that not only don't think you're funny, but wish you were never born. Now, my favorite comedians are so good because when they bomb, which they all do, they tend to not give a shit and just keep going. But Joe Rogan is weak.
That's a process. You have to realize that when you do something as failure, like look at all my videos, like there's a ton of them that could just, but it doesn't matter because you get to doing great things by doing something consistently and no matter, and you'll fail most of the time. And I still have a problem. Why does Joe Rogan know that? He gets on stage and bombs every night He's just so delusional. It's crazy. It's like when you go to a basketball court and they there's like, you know, the regular guys go and they all think they're good, and then the real good guys show up and they just jump over and dunk on them. And this whole time they're like, we're the kings of the court, until some real players showed up and then they got schooled. But here's the thing. Do you see that? Joe left the comedy mothership. What happened? He made the worst special of all time. Isn't that crazy? The echo chamber is his only safety, and thus why he never leaves.
And instead panicked and abandoned his set. The set that he had been working on for years and was so proud of, apparently.
I've seen your set. It's really funny.
It's tight now. It's good. It's like, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, Joe. We could tell. I can already hear you guys. Kamal, how are you so sure that this bald imp abandoned his set? Well, I know because right after one of Joe's bombings, he commits another cardinal sin and reused a joke from a previous special.
I've only been caught once in my whole jerking off career, but it was by my wife, and she was so upset. She goes, I can't believe you did it while I'm at home. And I'm like, I do it while you're sleeping right next to me. I do like this, like, I do tiny strokes as to not wake the master. I do it while you're sleeping right next to me. Tiny strokes as to not wake the master.
Really? This is the guy who's always talking about hard work? It's been 6 years since your last special and you're reusing jokes? Most good comedians, once their special comes out, they don't even reuse that material for shows, and they damn sure wouldn't reuse it for another special. That's like,
I know, isn't it embarrassing in the age of the internet where everybody can look that up that you do that? That's how dumb Joe Rogan is. He thought he could get away with it.
like a musician releasing a new album and reusing songs they put out 6 years ago. The only thing worse than reusing jokes from an old special is stealing jokes from another comedian, and it looks like our friend Joe did that too. And not only did he take a comedian's joke, but he took a joke from Brendan Schaub.
Allegedly.
I wish I was gay. It looks way easier.
My life would be so much easier if I was just gay as shit.
You're hanging out with only guys? No one can get pregnant?
We'd work out. At night, we'd f each other.
Isn't that crazy? Why didn't Brendan say anything? I don't know. But those two are the same. When Joe Rogan looks in the mirror, when Brendan Schaub looks in the mirror, they see each other. They see themselves because they are one. Remember I was telling you about that boot? Anyways, here we go. That's why Brendan Schaub's wife's fucking all those other people, allegedly, because Joe and Brendan are, but who? No, Joe would have to dominate Brendan because he's little, and little men just, sorry, I was told I can't do that.
Now, in fairness to Joe, I don't know if he actually stole these jokes from Brendan.
Yeah.
The jokes are really similar, but they're not exactly the same, and they're damn sure not anything groundbreaking. But what I am sure of is that if you've been doing stand-up comedy for 30 years and you have any kind of overlap with Brendan Schaub in your comedy special, you're fucking up. For those of you who don't know, Brendan Schaub is regarded as one of the worst comedians, if not the worst comedian of all time. I mean, this is a man who can barely speak the English language, let alone write a competent joke.
And they break the world into conspiracy therapy. Those guys, everything's a conspiracy.
And the special that Joe took this from is Gringo Papi, the worst stand-up special of all time. Honestly, calling it a stand-up special is disrespectful.
Mexican cookie, what are you talking about? It's like a chocolate chip with sauce all over it? What are you talking about?
It's a YouTube video. Let's call it what it actually is, a shitty YouTube video.
I'm not gonna lie to you, like, you know, a lot of people get hung up on Brendan Schaub. I just see him as a guy that just wants to fit in, right? But I think Brendan might be a little more bearable than Joe Rogan. Like, Brendan, at least he isn't screaming and looking at you like, laugh. You know what I mean? Like Joe Rogan does? Anyways.
Dozens of videos on this website talking about how shitty that YouTube video is. So the fact that Joe Rogan, the man whose biggest moment in comedy was attacking Carlos Mencia for stealing jokes, was caught stealing jokes from Gringo Papi, really shows not only where Joe's at in comedy, but in life. Because if it were me, and I understand how easy this is to say from the comfort of my own bedroom, but if it were me, I would rather be on stage with piss running down my leg and tears pouring from my eyes than to get caught stealing jokes from a doofus like Brendan Schaub.
So you do that History Channel show, Hunting Hitler.
That was fun.
Did you ever find Hitler?
Yeah, so he died.
There's no way in hell I'm going out like that.
Both of those guys are incredibly obnoxious. What is that guy? Tim, whatever his name is? Is that, I think that's his name? Oh, God. What a fucking chode.
30 years of comedy and I'm stealing from somebody who can't even speak English? Fuck no. I would rather die. I was thinking a lot about how Joe got to such a dark place, and I think the channel Comedy Enforcement has a theory that makes perfect sense. Since Joe's purchase of his new club, the Comedy Mothership, he's probably only been doing stand-up there, where 99% of the people there would be willing to sacrifice a small Mexican child just to be in the presence of their favorite closeted primate.
I'd like to feel a dick inside me.
So he's not gonna know how good his jokes actually are until he gets in front of a crowd of regular human beings.
Yeah.
People who don't breathe through their mouth and can read and write and aren't waiting for months at a time to see Tony Hinchcliffe talk about how awesome and definitely not gay he is.
Isn't that crazy? They're all retards. I think the only people lower than Kill Tony and Joe Rogan fans are Red Bar fans, and that's because they're just fucking nuts and obsessive over a small, tiny man that looks sick and like a crackhead.
I'm a gay
My guess is by the time Joe got in front of those regular people, it was too late. He was already recording his special live, and he found out in real time that his jokes are ass, and he pivoted. And normally, even if you're only practicing in front of your diehard friends, you'd have at least one more thing to stop you from a humiliation like this. Your comedian friends. People that can pull you to the side and say, hey man, these jokes are objectively bad. Only the people stupid enough to continue to watch your dog shit podcast in 2025 think this shit is funny. As soon as you—
This is great. This guy is calling them retards for me. I just love the confirmation because this guy's out of the, you know, the whole comedy content hate group. You know, that's what they call us. He's out of it. And I'm telling you, my spidey sense is dead on. I'm right about all this. I just want you guys to know. And it's not a thing of pride. It's just I am trying to save humanity from this terrible comedy. I'm trying so hard. But people can make their own minds up. And it's okay if they're little lemurs that fall off the cliff. That's what you do when you follow Joe Rogan. You're going cliff diving.
You get in front of regular people, you are going to embarrass yourself. Take some time and write better stuff. Or, you know, they could say it in a nice way or whatever, but you get what I'm saying. But unfortunately, most of Joe's friends are total cowards. These are people who will not only swallow whatever it takes for a chance to get on his podcast, but are also some of the worst comedians of this generation.
Give me that milk, won't you cut?
Well, that was
right? Cucks. They're all cucks. None of them can please a woman. Not a single one of them. They cannot please women. Would you... okay, I'm going.
Disturbing to see, but you know what's virtuous and true? Having a great wallet. Now, for those of you guys who know me, you know I'm not one to spend money on things. I mean, I've been wearing these same 5 t-shirts throughout every single one of my videos, but when I find a good deal, I take advantage. And this Extra Wallet Pro is a great deal, especially...
Okay, so I know you're going to ask why you're watching his commercial. I'm going to tell you one more time, and I'll probably say it again for new people. But it's polite. I'm watching his content. He has a sponsored ad. Well, the only thing I can do is sit through it. And then he gets more viewership. And it's like an exchange, right? So, yeah. And the extra wallets are actually, or I don't know how they say, Esther or something. They're actually quite, but they are $100, $120. I looked at them before. But they're cool. But $120 cool? You decide.
Now, out of the gate, it's backed with a lifetime guarantee, so if you get this wallet, you'll never have to buy a wallet again. So in my eyes, it's already way more valuable than anything any of these luxury brands are trying to sell you. Also handcrafted Italian leather, so it feels good in your hands and you're out here looking classy. It's also got this quick little access button, so you can like pop your cards out. Also very cool. Listen to the sound of the craftsmanship. That's metal, folks, okay?
The access button is huge for me because I've had slimmer wallets for a while now, but it's always so hard to get the cards out. It's a real pain in the ass. And if you want to be even more secure, you can get their tracker. You just slip it into your wallet and connect it to your phone. So if it gets misplaced or stolen, you just press the ring to find button and it starts ringing.
That's worth it right
yeah,
there.
Guys, they are paying me, but I wouldn't be saying all this if I didn't mean it. The wallets are super well made, and you get a lifetime guarantee. Extra is giving everybody 30% off until May 19th, but if you use my code KAHMAL, KAHMAL, at checkout, you can save an extra 10%. So go ahead and check out the Extra Wallet Pro. Thank you again to Extra for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the world's biggest clown. The most tragic part about Joe Rogan being the biggest gatekeeper in comedy is that Joe has made it his mission to take his least talented and most obnoxious friends and help them become some of the most popular comedians of our time. The worst example of this has to be the troglodyte himself, Brendan Schaub.
Hey, will you clear bullying meaning define bullying for me?
For those of you who are blessed enough to not know, Brendan Schaub is an ex-UFC fighter turned podcaster turned stand-up comedian turned to whatever this is.
Yep, that's me.
Look, Brendan just wants acceptance. That's all Brendan wants. He wants to find it, and everywhere he goes, he just biffs it, right? And I think the car thing, honestly, if there's one thing Brendan even did decently, it's the car thing. He's having a good time, so you just it's like the kid. You put him in the child proof crib, he doesn't hurt himself. I mean, you may roll a car or two, but if it's in the crib, it's all right with me, you know?
Been on Joe's show more than anybody with almost 100 different appearances, and about 2 years ago was easily the most hated man in stand-up. Because not only did Papa Joe hand Brendan his entire comedy career on a silver platter, but because Brendan Schaub is an unfunny, overly sensitive joke thief.
I go to Chili's and order fajitas. You know what I'm talking about, you order those fajitas, it's fucking poppin'.
You know my favorite food is? Fajitas. I love fajitas. Do you like fajitas? You ever get those? Yeah, you do, right? They're good. Because it's more than a meal. It's very exciting. When you order a fajita, you order them, and then a couple minutes later, they bring them out, and it is loud.
Those fajitas hit the floor, it's all... I'm like, what the fuck? Come on. Right here, bitch. Right here.
Smoke. It's like 4th of July. Everyone's like, oh my God. What is that? What the is that?
And again, I have to point to the irony of such a close friend of Joe's, the man who attacked Carlos for stealing jokes on stage, to be such a blatant joke thief. But
hey, listen, my offer stands. If Joe Rogan is ready to get wrecked on the mats, let's go, baby. In fact, I will throw Tony Hinchcliffe in and fight them both at the same time. I will knock Tony clear cold out with one punch, and then I will let Joe think he knows jiu-jitsu, and then I will throw him with the force of gravity into the mat and end that fight. It will be a sanctioned match. Do what you want. Joe Rogan, I'm gonna slap shit out of you on the mat. Okay? On the mat. With refs.
And Brendan was just trying to be like daddy. Honestly, I can make a 5-hour video about how dog shit Brendan Schaub is, not only as a comedian, but as a person. But at this point, there's probably over 100 videos on this website shitting on this man, so we will be moving on. Next shitty person. If Brendan was the most hated man in comedy 2 years ago, Bert Kreischer has definitely taken over that mantle this past year. I mean, the fact that this man just released the trailer for his new Netflix special, and it got 25,000 views on a channel with 30 million subscribers and has a like to dislike ratio that looks like this, tells me that people have had enough.
Do you remember? I was showing you the Kill Tony previews. I was showing you the Ari Shaffir previews. Gosh, I'm telling you folks, I will guide you to the truth in comedy. Other things, who knows? But I am pinpoint. 20 years from now, LionMeows will be like writing comedy history because this was the man. He called it all. It's just my spidey sense. But look, the facts speak for themselves. They could be the greatest comedians that nobody watches. They could be the greatest comedians that get bad special ratings. They could get the greatest comedians that all the magazines write that their fucking comedy is dog shit. So how are you the greatest comedian? And just like Tony Hinchcliffe going, I'm the #1 live comedy broadcast with a desk on the stage and a red mic and a crowd that yells at you and then goes on at 8 p.m. on Mondays. I'm the #1 podcast. Well, who said that, Tony? Because other official award-giving people said you're not. The ratings say you're not. The Spotify charts say you're not. Theo Vaughn, Bad Friends, all of them are above you. So where do they make these claims? Where do they come from? Their booty hole, because their favorite thing in life is booty hole on another man. And they just pull it out like a rabbit in the hat. #1 contest. Ooh, lube me up, buddy.
Bert is known as one of Rogan's death squad. Yes, that's really what they call themselves. And first came onto the scene when Rolling Stone wrote an article about him being the #1 partier in the #1 party school. By the way, this was during Bert's 6th year pursuing his bachelor's degree at Florida State. So already we can see that this is a man who has issues with maturity. He's kind of like Peter Pan if he was a narcissistic, overweight alcoholic who traded in their magical powers for underwhelming Netflix specials.
Did you know Julius Caesar was a real person?
Anyway, the article was huge and even caught the attention of Hollywood. Crazy enough, the Van Wilder movies are actually based off of Bert's life. Loosely based, obviously. After Bert graduated college, he was doing stand-up. He ended up in a movie called Hurt Bert, where he did shit like this.
That head was so big, and I didn't get like a little bit of the head on me. That whole head went into my whole side of my body, from my hip to my shoulder. I've been hit a lot.
And lucky
if you had any questions about me saying retarded throughout this video, this dude took, no, you say it doesn't have horns, but do you know this part of the head? You might as well just get hit with metal from that bolt. That is a solid piece of pain coming at you. And Bert took it in the ribs? No wonder he's an alcoholic. Wow. We now know, he confirmed, this is where all his problems come from, because you take a bullet hit like that? Bro. This guy is just something. These guys just want anything for attention.
Enough ended up being the 73rd guest on Joe Rogan's podcast, and has pretty much been a regular ever since. He was part of a segment called Sober October that had Bert, Tom Segura, NBA analyst Ari Shaffir, and of course, Daddy Joseph.
I'm not that retarded!
And between all the JRE appearances and
Whoa. And there you have it, folks. And there you have it. You know what? Joe Rogan just admitted he's retarded. Not that retarded, but now we confirm I was right again from the retarded man's mouth. It's great. We're developing facts, you know?
Everybody got during COVID, Bert's popularity began to skyrocket. So much so that he had one of the top 10 highest grossing comedy tours of 2024. Now, I'll say that I don't think Bert Kreischer is funny, but I can gladly say that his stand-up is nowhere near as bad as Brendan's. People aren't turning on Bert because his stand-up sucks. People are turning on Bert because they think he's a narcissistic, compulsive liar who refuses to let anyone get a word in.
Joe, what Joe does that you don't have the capacity to do is not make it all about himself.
Hold on. Fuck off. Hold on. There's a clip. No, hold on.
That's a clip. There's gotta be a clip out there of you not interrupting.
No.
Look that up.
I'm not interrupting. I'm having a fucking conversation. That's how conversations work.
Agreed. Yeah.
Bert seems to be somebody that loves to hear himself talk, but never really has anything interesting to say. And if he is saying something interesting, 9 times out of 10, it's just a BS story that he made up to make himself seem more impressive than he actually is. Like when Bert was on a radio show and made up a bullshit story about him kicking out Creed singer Mark Tremonti out of his band.
You're in a band. You ever have someone so good, you're like, oh, he's gonna realize how bad I am.
Oh,
yeah. So I kicked him out. And he was like, I'm the best guy in the band. And I was like, yeah, and that's why we don't want you anymore. He started a band called Creed.
Oh, no way, Mark
Tremonti, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine named Bert Kreischer who swears he was in a band with you at FSU, and you said to me, no, I don't think I've ever met a man named Bert in my life.
It's either that.
Hey, I saw Creed play last year. I was a big fan, and I think Mark is kind of like Wes Barlin. He just writes really good licks, memorable licks that you can remember. And I liked seeing some good butt rock. Creed was the butt rock kings. And then they got all religious on stage, and me and my girlfriend dipped off. We dipped out. And we drove to another state to see him, and we were just like, well, never listen to Creed again. I just don't want religion mixed in to good music or anything. I think sometimes we should just be neutral, It's not all about religion or putting your beliefs on other people. But anyways, Creed story. Let's go.
Battery saying some of the most juvenile, delusional, disconnected shit I've ever heard.
My daughters are going to be failures compared to you. They will make no one happy. I will be shocked if they get out from under my shadow. I mean, two white chicks, mediocre, not even that attractive.
About your daughters.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. They all look like the one girl looks like his mom, and it's just like, okay.
I don't find them hot. What am I wrong?
And of course, none of Bert's shitty behavior is Joe's responsibility, but I notice a pattern with most of Joe's friends that they seem to only do stand-up or podcasting not because they love it or they're actually good at it, but because they see it as an opportunity to not only make a shit ton of money.
And just so that daughter is an adult. That daughter is an adult, okay?
But to fill some sort of gross attention-seeking void they have.
If someone were to say, yeah, stand-up could be great, but I don't want to have to need to get my energy refilled by other people's applause and approval, I would rather get that at home from my family.
Nah, I don't really like having a night off.
And no one...
Bro, make that fight happen. Make that sanctioned fight happen. And would you love to see Tony Hinchcliffe have to face somebody? It's sanctioned, so it's sparring. We'll call it a sparring match. Would you like to see that? I know you would. You tell me, would you like to see a kick to the head or an elbow? Or would you just like me to take him down? Or would you like me to do a very exaggerated throw, so you could just see it in slow-mo? Yeah! You grab collar wrist.
No one is a better example of this than Tony Hinchcliffe. If Bert Kreischer's the most hated man in comedy now, I think the next person to have their audience turn on them is gonna be Tony. But for me, Tony is a different case because I actually think he's funny.
Believe it or not, I was born and raised in an all-black neighborhood. That's where a lot of the swagger that you're seeing tonight is coming from.
That's the thing with Tony, is like just a few years ago, he wasn't this obnoxious, but lately, just like Joe, he's become absolutely unbearable. But anyway, Tony is another guy that Joe helped rise to fame. I'm like 82% sure that Tony was either gonna quit comedy or was afraid of doing comedy because of the insecurities of his gay voice, and Joe was the one that told him to pursue it anyway. And normally, I would think this was a great story because I too have a voice that's kind of gay, but I don't like Tony, so I will be making fun of him and his high levels of estrogen. And people aren't switching on Tony solely because of his raised by a single mom.
They should be called the Booty Hole Squad. They dude, I'm telling you, they try to pretend, but behind the scenes, they're having massive orgies in the green room. And there ain't no women there because women are smart. And the only women there are gold diggers. You've seen Joe's wife. Woof!
Vibe. People are turning on Tony because his ego is out of control and because he's a fucking asshole. Look at him being a total dick to this guy on his show, Kill Tony, for no reason.
Do you have money saved up?
Yeah, X amount,
God, you are the worst. Somehow all your awkwardness, there's nothing likable about it. It's amazing. Like, it should be likable, but it's not.
What a B word, am I right? And the funny thing is, I actually watched that guy's set, and I don't think he did a bad job. I get why Tony didn't like it, but this guy was kind of like a different thing, Like, if he was a rapper, he'd be a Playboy Cardi, minus the violence, hopefully. But like I said, low testosterone Daniel Tosh isn't just an asshole. He also has an ego that is completely unbearable. A moment that perfectly illustrates this is when Tony tried to humiliate the much more likable Jeremiah Watkins on stage last year.
First of all, let me say, f this guy. This is not fair. I'm used to doing roasts that people watch. You f.
Takes one to know one.
Go have your magic moment. This is the biggest thing in your career. Go do it. Go get it.
What an asshole. And the funny thing is nobody watched Kill Tony on Netflix. In fact, it got on the rankings for like 30 minutes because all the fans watched. And then it just dropped off into oblivion. Last time I checked, it was 9,700th thing watched on Netflix. 9,700th thing watched on Netflix. Maybe people would say, well, it'd be great to be on Netflix and be number 9,700. Yeah, true. But I thought this was the number one broadcast in the world that involved a red mic on Mondays at 8 p.m. with a judging table and a band. That is also on YouTube. I thought that was the award it won. But it's not true because they're all fucking lying. And then they have all these psycho-ass parasocial motherfucking fans that try to keep it alive. But once you ban them all, where are people praising Tony? They ain't. They ain't. Because there are none.
Go get it.
These personal ones hurt a little bit. Now, I know these two used to work together before Tony followed his Lord and Savior Little Joseph to Texas, so I don't know if there's like unknown beef here.
One thing I love about how real this is getting is
I wish everyone knew everything.
But just based off of what we're seeing, Tony's being a dick. And funny enough, this is the day after Tony's big moment with the Tom Brady roast, so you would think that he would be in a good mood, but clearly not. Speaking of Tony's big moment, here's a clip of him talking about it, and you guys tell me if you think this shit is as cringy as I do.
But you were a superstar to me.
And if you only knew, I'm about to spill the beans on these mother. They don't even know. I'm about to give them the whole inside scoop about how it was supposed to be a short set. They didn't want me to make fun of this. They didn't want me to make fun of that. And then we said, okay.
And then you just get up there and you just...
Right. The world, they gave me a chance. You know what I mean? They gave a hungry wolf a chance.
I've never...
Bro, you ain't tall enough to be a wolf. Stop it.
Seen anybody make cigarettes look so lame in my life. And to see a 40-year-old man say spill the beans with his whole chest is one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. Also, the comments for this video are objectively hilarious. Here are some of my favorites. The lesbian with the cigarette is super confident. Guarantee Tony was gonna put 2 hands on that straw prior to sipping. And last but not least, the funniest thing about Tony is his ability to keep a straight face when he talks like this. And unfortunately for society, this spill the beans clip was not a one-off. It seems like anytime he's on a podcast, he just can't wait to talk about how awesome he and his show are.
My show's 2.5 hours. His show's 60 minutes. The roast of Tom Brady was the most watched program in Netflix's entire history. The episode of Kill Tony with Shane Gillis as Donald Trump and Adam Ray as Joe Biden, 1.5 billion minutes watched.
That's because they were the main part of the show. Do you see what I'm saying? Shane Gillis made your show popular, not you, because you're not a comedian. And we're all waiting for that Netflix special you're supposed to drop. Boy, oh boy, it will be a holiday of making fun of your ass.
2.5 billion minutes watched.
Wow. His lack of self-awareness is honestly mind-blowing. But that's the through line I have with Joe and damn near every single one of his friends. They're all top-tier comedians with zero awareness, which I would say is one of the most important parts of being funny. But these are the people Joe chooses to surround himself with. A bunch of obnoxious, egotistical narcissists all trying their best to stay on Rogan's good side for the possibility to get back on his dog shit podcast. Not exactly the best group of people to keep somebody grounded, you know? But unfortunately, it gets even worse because now Joe has established what I call the untouchables. These are people Joe has convinced himself are his friend, people who can no longer be made fun of or criticized. People like RFK.
2 people died.
I'm gonna do his voice while you talk if you don't mind.
Don't do that.
Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and even Jared Leto.
Lookout Mountain.
Jared Leto owns that. He lives there now.
Doesn't he have a whole cult?
Shh. Okay. He's a good guy.
Shush, he's a good guy? Like, what kind of bullshit is that? This was insane to me. Mr. Conspiracy Theorist and the biggest gatekeeper in comedy is now so cucked that he's silencing comedians to protect Jared Leto. This
Jared
Leto. Oh, you, with your fingers in your chin beard, what are you sitting on your fucking ass for?
All right, I'm going to revise my statement. I will take on Joe Rogan, Tony Hinchcliffe, and Jared Leto. Pretty sweet, huh? Let's get it. It'll just be one.
This is the 30 Seconds to Mars show. Okay?
Garbage.
If you can't stand up, you better be up off your ass right now. You hear me?
Why? Because he went to dinner with him once and he was nice to him.
Dinner with him, me, him, Theo, and
he's
some
my
Spotify
spirit animal.
people.
I love him.
He's a great guy.
Joe, you silly little bitch. Everyone you meet with half a brain is going to be nice to you. You have the biggest podcast in the world. People are gonna want to get on your good side. How is he this fucking stupid? Like, but he was nice to me. He was nice to me. Like, no shit, dumbass. Maybe it's because he thinks he can get something out of it.
Hey, this guy's legit. I like this. Not many of these other comedy channels do it like this, go to this extent. Gotta give him props, man. I gotta give him props.
You like UFD like I like UFD. He's a good guy. This is why I say Joe Rogan has ruined comedy. It's not only because he's objectively bad at stand-up or the fact that he doesn't understand basic humor. Those things definitely don't help and are hilarious, but it's mostly because of this weak-ass culture he's created. A culture of being nice and fake for the sake of his celebrity friendships. Also, Joe's dumbass picks the worst people possible to try and protect. He is surrounded by grifters and has no idea. It is pathetic. What Joe is doing is robbing comedy of its integrity. This is why Anthony Jeselnik said what he said.
I'm like disgusted with the state of comedy and podcasting. If you have a presidential candidate or a major politician on your show and you do not with them in any way, you're a podcaster. You're not a comedian.
The stand-up comedy I grew up on was never about being nice, especially to politicians and celebrities. I always saw it as the comedian's job to not only make us laugh, but to say the thing we're all thinking but too afraid to say out loud. To call out the parts of our culture they thought were bullshit. But Joe Rogan is that bullshit. An out-of-touch, confused old man surrounded by cowardly, narcissistic hacks. He keeps other comedians in line with a threat of never being on his podcast again. I don't think he does it consciously, but it's out there. Like, there's a reason that nobody ever talked about how shitty Brendan is. This is a man who's made it his life's mission to give some of the worst people on this planet the perfect platform to lie about whatever they want to millions with zero pushback. And in the next episode, I'm gonna prove that he knows that this is happening and doesn't care.
You got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. They're talking about you in such a favorable light. The audience was cheering, and then you actually started winning in the polls, and then the machine started working towards you.
Yeah.
There's probably no one in history that I've ever seen
that's been attacked the way you've been attacked.
Stand-up comedy.
Well, there you go, guys. Joe Rogan officially ruined comedy. Great video. Give him a like or subscribe. I think I'll give him a subscribe. I liked him. I mean, he said it how it is. He didn't dress it up. And it's true. Joe has destroyed comedy. And here's the real thing. I don't know if it will be able to recover anytime soon. He's put so much bullshit out there. I just don't know if it can recover. But who knows? It's up to you guys to stop watching the horse shit. So let me know what you think in the comments and have a good day.